Okay, this is a topic that I don't think I've ever spoken about on the show before, although maybe very briefly in passing in the aftermath of the George Floyd riots. But do you all remember hearing about these groups that popped up, like the Bail Project, that kind of positioned themselves as charities? But basically what they did was they bailed criminals out and they took money from people like Vice President Kamala Harris, and they would bail out these looters and rioters and people who really committed crimes. And there are some questions about the way these groups operate as distinct from the way that ordinary kind of bail bonds and all this other, the usual system operates. Questions that are beyond me because I don't understand the industry. I don't really understand the issues. So joining us to help us understand the issues and a new ruling in the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, federal court ruling, Jeff Clayton is an attorney here in Colorado and head of the American Bail Coalition. He joins me in studio. Jeff, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
So I want to just jump right in. What are the issues at hand with groups like the Bail Project and the Colorado version called the Colorado Freedom Project?
Well, they operate in an unregulated environment, unlike bail bondsmen that have the departments of insurance overseeing them, auditing them, make sure they don't do things that are unethical or illegal. And the bail projects don't have to get licenses, and their point is to bail out violent defendants to cause outrage against the money bail system. So they're trying to destabilize the bail system, unlike bail agents trying to serve their clients.
And I think it's Colorado Freedom Fund. I think I said Colorado Freedom Project.
That's
Colorado
correct.
Freedom Fund. So what's your argument? Like, for example, if I know somebody, or even if I don't, who gets put in jail and they need bail money, I could just go put up their bail money, right? And I don't need a license. I don't need anything. I think my ethics don't even matter. So why does it matter for these groups?
Well, sort of the research shows that you have an incentive to make sure that the person you're posting bail for goes back to court because you want to get your money back, or you're subject to additional forfeitures in Colorado. These funds have no economic incentive. They get the money and the incentives are broken. So whether somebody shows up or not doesn't matter to these funds. And lawyers say that's a problem under the Colorado Constitution because it's insufficient sureties.
That's an interesting point. So they go raise money from Kamala Harris and friends like her, and they post $50,000 bail for somebody who burned down a store. And then normally, if your group was putting up 50 grand, you'd make sure that the guy showed up in court so you get your 50 grand back, or I would if I somehow bailed somebody out, which I've never done. But because Kamala Harris gave them the 50 grand, they don't care if they get it back. And then this person just might not show up in court. And by the way, then what happens?
Absolutely. There's no cure. There's no arrest powers either when they take off. When they decide they're fleeing the jurisdiction, the bail bondsman has to go get them. The Freedom Fund just washes their hands and say, we made our point.
But the cops could still go rearrest him for fleeing.
That's right. But generally, the Denver police is not going to go over to Kansas to pick them up, unlike bail agents are able to do.
Wow. Okay. So what was the issue at hand in the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals case, and what did they rule?
Well, the Bail Project said that the Indiana legislature could not regulate them. And basically, they required a similar regulation as bail agents. They have to get a license. There's limitations on what they do. If they do highly unethical and illegal things, they could lose their license. They argued that what they were doing was protected speech and that they could not be regulated because of that. And the Seventh Circuit rejected that and held that legislatures have an interest in regulating charitable bail to protect the public interest. And they also said you can't post bail in felonies and violent felonies. They just didn't want the Bail Project going out in an environment where there's no incentives with these violent felons and just giving them a free pass.
So there would be a First Amendment right for the Bail Project to say, we think so-and-so should be granted bail, but that's not the same as saying that there is a First Amendment right to put up the bail and get that person out of jail, right?
Absolutely. And one of the Seventh Circuit judges said, when you walk into the clerk's office and you hand him the piece of paper, that's not the speech. It's when you walk out and say, I bailed this person out, thereby showing we don't need bail, thereby showing we should get rid of bail, is the speech.
Okay. So you, I don't mean you personally, but bail bondsmen can bail out people who committed violent felonies, assuming a judge granted bail of some amount. I'm still not entirely clear, even though I understand the incentive thing, why the bail project shouldn't be allowed to bail somebody out that you can? Is it because of the incentive thing? Is that really the dividing line, is when the regular system does it, they're likely to end up back in court, and when the bail project does it, they're less likely? Is that it?
That's it. The Seventh Circuit said because in Indiana you have to be a close family and friend to post bail, that incentive is strong, and that the bail project just doesn't have incentives, and thus it was firm ground for the legislature to go in and do this line drawing.
Is there legislation like this in other states?
Absolutely. There's been several states that have introduced bills, and Indiana is now the third state to regulate charitable bail funds.
Wow. How much money do these groups have?
Well, according to the New York Times, they raised $100 million. I'm not exactly sure how much the Colorado Freedom Fund has raised, but according to their website, they've posted $2.3 million in bail over the last 5 years here in Colorado.
Oh, wow. Unbelievable. So they've got employees and they've got office space, and
they do. According to their website and news stories, they've doubled their office space. They've added an attorney. They're doing lobbying now. They've registered to lobby. They're doing all kinds of things. But interestingly, they're not posting bails right now if you go to their website. So we're not exactly sure what they're up to at this point.
One would be tempted to wonder whether it's a legit charity and people who may be actually well-intended, even if you and I might think they're not doing it the way we'd want to, versus is it like Black Lives Matter? And I mean the actual Black Lives Matter organization, which is just a giant grift of people who took donors' money and bought expensive houses.
Yeah, and they raised $100 million to bail out peaceful protesters, and we found out they only bailed out 12 in Minneapolis. I'm not sure what the number is in Denver, but that's a lot of money to bail out peaceful protesters that just weren't there to bail out.
Wow. Very interesting. Okay, so I don't know anything about your industry. Just got a little bit of time left. Teach us something about the way the bail industry works that you think most people don't understand. And just give me like 31 seconds.
Well, I think that most people don't understand that dealing with the government and the very government that's seeking to prosecute you is something you want to get away from. The bail industry and the bail agent offers you that ability to get away from the government. If you say, oh, I'll just submit to supervision by the state. Oh, I'll submit to all these tentacles of the very state that's prosecuting you. Most people don't realize that the main goal when you're getting prosecuted by the state is to get away from them. They just assume we'll go along with whatever the government wants, and generally that turns out to be a bad strategy.
Jeff Clayton is an attorney here in Colorado and head of the American Bail Coalition. Thanks for your time. That was super interesting, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll be right back on KOA.